This week, Smackdown 1000. Is Crown Jewel still going ahead? And NXT UK kicks off in Cambridge. Welcome to Staring at the Lights with Rob, Tom and Ethan.
Hello.
Tom is joining us remotely this week.
From a remote location.
From a remote Siberian bunker.
A big week this week in WWE with SmackDown's 1000th episode.
Yes.
Quite a feat really to have two shows that have gone over 1,000 episodes and don't really show any signs of stopping or slowing down. You know, I've thought about this the other day when I was thinking, I can't think of a time when they'll not be on. Or when they will, or they might evolve into something else.
I'm sure it'll happen at some point, but not for a very long time.
Not for a long time. But I think a few of the key things from it, or the standout things, obviously the return of Evolution, which is all that really everybody's been talking about, especially Dave Bautista, and the special that WWE have since put on about him. His 30-minute mini documentary about his return and everything. But I don't know. I suppose the main thing we want to talk about is the promo that he cut.
That was awesome. It was wicked.
Yeah. What I mean is it pushing something towards him and Triple H having a bit of an angle? I don't know. I think if it did, it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, Dave said the only way he wanted to return to the WWE would be on a kind of like semi-permanent schedule and a run up to Mania with Triple H. So whether they're giving in to his demands or not, I'm not too sure. But it seems like they're definitely hinting it. But WWE have done this before. You know, they've said like, they've hinted a match and then just completely forgotten about it and whitewashed it. But I could see it being a big marquee Mania match. You'll get a lot of eyes on the product. I mean, I'd be chuffed. I think Dave's amazing in terms of like from a wrestling perspective and a character perspective. He really he has that like old school wrestler look that a lot of the guys just don't have anymore. And obviously it's, chemically enhanced, which is, he's not ashamed to say that. But he does bring that kind of big personality, like attitudes back to wrestling, which is, I think it's a win on all sides really. And especially working with Triple H, it'll be a well thought out match. It'll be a match Dave can work, and hopefully it pulls off. I mean, I'm hoping it pulls off. A few of the guys on Twitter who replied to our recent comment maybe weren't so sure, but I'm hoping it pulls off.
I think they're still both. I mean, we saw Triple H in Super Showdown, and he's in great shape, and so is and so is Batista. Obviously, he keeps in great shape for the films that he makes and the type of film roles that he gets. He has to be in great shape. So, I think it could be a great match. I think it'd be, if they push it and they work it well, I think it could be great.
Yeah, I think it will happen. Triple H always needs some kind of Mania match, which I'm not against. I like seeing Triple H wrestle. But it makes more sense to have it something like this than just a throwaway match that he's kind of put into. It's got a lot of bad blood behind it, I guess, if you look at it from the angle of he's never beaten Batista. But yeah, I mean, it'd be a good match. I'm sure it'd be fine. I'm probably open the show for Mania, I would say, personally. Get it out of the way, possibly. Get it done, get Batista his big moment.
Can you imagine a Guardians of the Galaxy themed WrestleMania entrance?
That would be pretty cool, to be fair.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
That would be good.
So good.
We've seen what it's like when Seth Rollins does them, like this year's Mania. He was like a White Walker, and he just looked unbelievable. That'd
be wicked.
The staging that they do now, especially even like with Asuka's match when she came out and she had the sort of holograms and 3D masks that were floating around in the stadium, and there's
a lot of ways you can go about it. Definitely,
it was great. It was a great show for sort of people returning. I suppose one of the main people that we like to see return would have been Edge, because I think we all are fans of Edge and think he probably, if they were to clear him, it'd be great for him to have a run again.
I don't think he's got any desire to wrestle ever again, personally.
Do you not think he misses it?
He definitely misses it, but I don't think he's got any desire to risk ever wrestling again.
By the sounds of it from the ENC podcast, he's pretty clear that his run came to a nice conclusion. It just happened to coincide with him getting injured, but I think he's kind of made peace with that by the sounds of it now, and he's what a legacy he's got. So I mean, you've kind of got that Shawn Michaels thing. I mean, not to it doesn't really apply now, but that whole thing of going out when you were on top rather than just stringing it out. So in Edge's case, I think he's pretty happy with the legacy he's got, and he's just happy being a kind of family man and a bit of an actor as well. So it seems like he's got his thing sorted.
Yeah, it's nice for him to come back every so often and do the little things that he does, like with cutting edge and stuff. But yeah, I don't think he'd ever. I mean, Daniel Bryan, like, you look at Daniel Bryan, and yeah, he got cleared and probably could have been cleared for a long time, but he wanted to be back in the ring and he wants to take the risk of, maybe damaging himself even more. But I don't think Edge has got that.
I think with Daniel Bryan, he was always happy that, well, if you don't clear me and I think it's right, I will move to another promotion and I will wrestle again.
He was going to wrestle regardless of what happened with WWE, but I don't think Edge has that driving force, and he can still be involved in stuff. Like, he can still do.
He still is involved with WWE as a company because he does the show on the network. I think that's got renewed for another season.
Yeah,
I think
he does all sorts of stuff. He's still involved in it in one way or another.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd like to see him maybe in like a trainer role at NXT maybe, or something like that. But
he's a good legend representative for the company, because I mean, most of the legends, quote unquote, tend to be pretty like, 1 minute they're children's hospital, the next minute they're tanked up outside of a regular hospital, overdosing on heroin or some horrible shit like that. They don't have a great track record with legends, whereas a guy like Edge is like, pretty squeaky clean. I mean, he's had a few things in his past, but don't we all? He's a good guy to be having around the company for a long, long time. So, and he's hell of a legacy, a legitimate world champion. You see a lot of like world champions come through and guys who've held the belt, but Edge was someone who you can really say did it all and kind of was legitimate in everything that he did. So yeah, good to see Edge.
Definitely. His segment. I was going to say section, but then I decided to say segment.
The rated R superstar.
But his segment with Becky Lynch, I thought was great. And it just she's so good as a heel that she's over more as a heel. Though. She's kind of in. They want her to be, and they're pushing it to be.
I don't even think she acts like a heel. I don't think the stuff that she does, to me, brings her across as a heel. I think if I was going to book a heel, I'd book her a lot worse than I booked Becky Lynch.
Great little comment of like me and Ethan mentioned earlier before we started recording about how only kind of Becky Lynch can make a comment about Edge as neck injury and get a cheer.
Yeah.
Especially in the high regard that Edge is in still.
Yeah, and that was obviously a massive heel thing to say, but I still don't know if it's all the work that WWE wanted to come across as a heel and it's just not working. I don't think they'd go in for that.
I think there's part of me where I've thought about it, because I think I mentioned in the last episode the way Vince McMahon sees her as an example of someone who grabbed the brass ring, and I think sometimes they do test their characters who they plan on maybe getting a face turn from a heel run, and I think they want to give them stuff that's quite out there, but it's kind of like an Austin barometer, like a test where it'll be like, can you say something that's awful and still get a good reaction? If you can, you're hot. You're really hot. People are going to get behind you no matter what. And I think they're really onto that with Becky. Like, she was quite lost in the woods for a little while, and now she's really found this place, and she could be one of the main women to carry the brand forward. And at Evolution, I think, I'd be really disappointed if her and Charlotte don't close the show, but I could see with the apparent ticket sales spike that they've had since announcing Nikki Bella, I could see Nikki and Ronda probably closing the show. But really, this whole feud with Charlotte and Becky has been one of the best things in recent times, and I've actually a few people I spoke to have said that as well. And it's I think they're doing excellent work with her character at the moment.
It's giving Becky the limelight she deserves, because everyone knows how hard she works and the quality that she has. If you even look at like this year's Women's Royal Rumble, they started her and Sasha Banks off and just got them to carry the whole match for a good 45 minutes almost. But I think they're working it really well with her. There was a thing I saw today actually where Charlotte's done this thing where she's been to the Performance Centre and legitimately gone to talk to new talent and introduce herself there and be there as a mentor to this new talent. And there's a section where Becky turns up and attacks her in front of them all, and they're still pushing it even out of the cameras almost as well, which is really good.
They're giving it like an Attitude Era style framing. It's great.
Definitely. I think it'll be great if they do get a high spot on the on Evolution, which is coming up. We were I said earlier I think I'm looking forward to Evolution more than I am Crown Jewel.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I was semi-skeptical about Evolution, primarily because I just thought, like, it seems as though they've got all this great talent, but they my initial thought was they're just going to bang a lot of them in a Royal Rumble match, which they have done, but the quality of the work rate and the kind of proving ground this gives the women on the card to show that they can carry it over is just awesome. And I think we're going to see like some of the best wrestling we've seen on a card, like from start to close, than we've seen in a very long time. And like I say, it has a positivity, whereas Crown Jewel's really shrouded in a pretty serious negativity right now.
Well, I think the difference between the two, I mean, even if you look on paper, like I've got the cards for both pay-per-views in front of me, and at the minute Crown Jewel has 4 matches announced. You've got the DX match, which we somehow predicted 3 days before it actually got predicted on the last podcast. Obviously, it comes out after Raw had been out, so but we've got that match with DX and then Kane and Undertaker. You've got AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan, and then Reigns, Strowman and Lesnar, and then this WWE World Cup that every participant is American, which is crazy. But then you look at that in contrast to the Evolution card, where you've got Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella, Becky Lynch v Charlotte, Kairi Sane against Shayna Baszler, Lo Sherry against Toni Storm in the Mae Young final. The only real match that's not got anything massively at stake in the sense of a title is the tag match with Trish and Lita against Mickey and Alexa. Even the women's battle royal will have some kind of,
I'm sure I'll give it
something at the end of it, like they do with the Andre the
they'll
Giant
give it
battle
some
royal.
kind of title shot,
yeah, man. Well, I mean, the last women's battle royal they had at WrestleMania, Naomi won it, and she never got anything afterwards. She actually put a tweet out about that, saying, "If I win this one, will you actually give me what I deserve this time?" Because they just forgot about that completely. But no, the card looks stacked, and it's just the fact there's so much variation there. And I mean, had it just been the main roster women getting the shot, and if they just put people like Rhea Ripley and Lo Shirai and Toni Storm, if they just put them into the Battle Royal, that would have been really disappointing. But the fact they've put some of the top female talent in the world, some of the top talent in the world, the fact that they've put them on that card means that they're really going all in with this, and they're not just going, we're just going to try and do ticket sales. They want to really show what the women can do in a professional wrestling standpoint, and I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, they're not the first company to do it, but they're the first company to do it on this stage. So yeah, I think it's going to be a whopping success, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's even some big names that have been announced in the last day or two that are going to be in the Battle Royal. You know, you look like Alundra Blaze having a little run in there, where she's going to be involved in. I think she really wanted to be involved in the Women's Royal Rumble, but maybe it just wasn't the right time for her. But I mean, we've got a list in front of us here. So you've got Tamina, Peyton Royce, Billy Piper, Billy Piper, Billy Kay.
Mate, Chris Evans is a valet.
Billy Kay, Ember Moon, Alicia Fox, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Asuka. I think it's a shame to see her in there. She's almost lost in that a little bit from what she did too.
Asuka deserved a lot better.
Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Carmella's in there, Lana, Naomi, Tori Wilson, Michelle McCool, Ivory, Kelly, Maria Kanellis is back, and Molly Holly's going to be in there as well. There may be even more.
A lot of birds, mate. A lot of birds.
But I think it's going to be a really good pay-per-view, I think.
Yeah. No reason why it shouldn't be.
I think it's going to be really good. And if you know, whatever happens with Crown Jewel, if it does go ahead or not, I know there's a lot of speculation about what's the idea, you know, what's going on at the minute, but I think this is the one that might be the one that takes it out of the two for me.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. I think the last Saudi Arabia show was fairly underwhelming, and I think like the WWE main roster men's division are really just like stale. Like I can't remember the last like men's match I watched on WWE TV or in a main event where I was like really blown away by it. I mean, obviously you've got NXT and NXT UK, which is a completely different beast, and you're seeing some amazing wrestling. But I feel like maybe the whole kind of like hand of control isn't quite as grasped onto the women, so they've got a lot more room to kind of create and put on these really kind of like exciting matches. Like I was talking about, Charlotte and Becky have been the best matches on their respective cards of almost every show consistently since they started feuding. And Charlotte alone, to me, since maybe like last year's WrestleMania, she has been the MVP of the company in terms of quality of matches on a main roster. I don't think anyone, I mean, people talk AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, but they have matches where you watch and you're just not that blown away by. But every time Charlotte seems to wrestle, she does something incredible, or she puts on a match with great psychology or a great high spot. And I think this is really going to show that it's not just a case of you know, the women are a break, or the women aren't, you know, quite as good as the men. They are on par, if not better than the men in most of the time.
Yeah,
So.
I'd agree with that. I think with Charlotte especially, obviously she's in high regard because of, you know, her lineage and of who her dad is, but she's some, you know, in some circles regarded as one of the best female wrestlers like in the world, let alone just in WWE. You know.
Yeah.
I'd say as a whole package, she for my money, as a whole package on like the large stage, the best, because she's in the top level, and she's still performing to that level. And there are, you know, technically better wrestlers, technically better people who put on better performances or whatever, but she's got that whole package that's marketable, and it's good to watch as well. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really put anybody above her, to be honest.
No, it's been great. So speaking of NXT, we had the first UK show airing this week. Obviously, they're all recorded, and they've been recorded a few weeks back. But the first one aired on Thursday, I think it was.
Yes.
And it was
Wednesday.
Some great matches on there. Great. The Pete Dunne Noam Dar match was really, really good. I kind of watched it and thought of. The more I watched Noam Dar in this recent little return he's done, where he's been back and he's done these sort of UK NXT shows, or he's even popped up at other places, I see him actually as like, you know what, he could be the one that maybe, if he does take the belt from Pete Dunne, I can see it, where there's not a lot of anybody else that I can see.
There's nobody else right now that is in the contention for the title. I think Zach Gibson will be the title holder at some point, probably soon. After getting to the final of the NXT, the UK tournament, sorry, on the Albert Hall, he kicked out of the bitter end, which nobody's done before, never done since. He had such a strong showing in them 2 nights, like really crazily strong showing, and I was a bit surprised he didn't put the title on him on the second night. I genuinely thought it was going to happen while I was there. It was a good reaction for Pete to win, and I get why they did it. And I think, was he on the first show?
Pete on the first UK tournament.
Zach Gibson wasn't on Wednesday. He wasn't on the.
No, not at all. No.
So I kind of guess maybe they might put him into the tag team with James Drake.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with the tag team sort of division now that's forming. There's not really many that you can see. They're going to have
to put him into a tag team to put him against for these UK titles, because there's not really. I mean, you've got Flash and Ball in a tag team. You've got.
Does he have a contract with WWE though, or is it just Flash?
He was at the UK Albert Hall shows.
Was he?
I think so.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram. He definitely has a contract with him. He is wrestling on the cards.
Yeah. So you've got them. You've got the Coffee Brothers. You've got obviously Moustache Mountain, who will be the first inaugural tag champs. Undisputed Era said they'll come over and wrestle for them.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a few different matches. I mean, Moustache Mountain and Undisputed Era is the match of the night on any card you put it on. But yeah, there's not very many tag teams that are going to go in contention for them titles. But
they need a bit of CCK in there. Just have like sit on the apron.
This is the thing. So I mean, speaking of televised UK wrestling, Rev Pro did their first show on Free Spots a couple of nights ago that they recorded it down in London, and obviously Chris Brooks is notorious and one of the guys that doesn't have a WWE contract. He stayed on the Indies. They did like a bit of a promo on it at one show a while ago, but I think it was all the work, to be fair. I don't think he was like genuinely calling out WWE or anything like that, because obviously a lot of his friends do wrestle for them, and I'm sure he'll want to wrestle for them at some point.
The strength of his merch game, he can just do what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I say it's going to be interesting. I think, personally, I think Zach Gibson will be the next UK title holder. Probably Trav at some point will hold it. Travis Banks. I should probably look into the results of the recent shows they've recorded, because as a fan I was staying away from them to watch them, but being a podcaster, I hate it.
Maybe be ahead of the curve.
Don't ever say that again. I'm not a podcaster.
We're 3 episodes in, and
being a professional podcaster. No, I just pretend I didn't.
You
say
sounded
it.
like me there.
Yeah, no, I should probably look into the results so I can actually talk about it a bit more, because I'm just kind of waiting week for week to see what happens, which is fun, but yeah.
I think there's a lot of things like we know about, and there's things that not that like we have any inside scoop, but we look at results from things. Obviously, we look for matches that have been recorded but not been put out yet, and we look to see what the results are in some cases. There's one actually that's going to be involved in the Evolution match, which we've not touched on because we don't really want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of work coming around the women's UK division as well, which will be really good.
Yeah,
it's good. I think
yeah,
it's a great package, and then I think the UK show was
really good. It was really well put together.
Really well put together, really good, and the difference in I know there's vast more experience in recent times, but the difference between what a UK NXT show looks like compared to a World of Sport show, is just night and day.
But that's because the ones that are running Triple H and obviously was there, I think, for some of the recordings. Jim Smallman and Glenn from Progress, I think. Again, it's all speculation, but I
know they were at the Plymouth show.
They were there.
They were there.
I think apparently the rumour is that they are producing the shows for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is again the rumour, but it just goes to show that if you put people in charge that love wrestling and know wrestling, you will get a good show no matter what budget / you've got.
Everything else takes care for itself, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, of course it does.
Look after itself.
You look at World of Sport, and again, I've got nothing against it. It is what it is. And it gets the market audience that it wants to get in, which is just young children that don't really know much about
it's
wrestling.
ITV.
It's ITV. It's a prime time.
TV.
Yeah, it's a prime time spot, and it's like a.
It's all
like
a bit,
wrestling version of the X Factor, pretty much. It's just like
it's all a bit Butlin still, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
pretty much. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Butlin's wrestling.
I think there is.
Okay, fair.
I'm personally morally offended by it. It makes me sick.
I think some of my first live memories of wrestling was at a Butlin show. I don't remember who was on it, but it was pretty.
We'll have to get to that. We'll have to get to that on another episode, because my first memories of live wrestling are absolutely horrifying, awful.
Yeah,
awful stories for another day.
But yeah, the show in Cambridge was great. I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Great venue as well for it. I think it looked really good as well.
It looked great. The one gripe that I've got with it is that it was only an hour long, and there's nothing. I love hour-long shows. I think they're perfect. I think they're the exact right length that it should be. But if you're going to have title matches every week, which I think they might do,
it's only like 3 matches, isn't it?
Yeah, you're going to cut down on a lot of time for the other guys when you've got Pete Dunne wrestling 25-minute matches, which again I'm all for, because I love Pete Dunne as a wrestler. I think he's one of the probably is the best in the world right now for me personally.
It's one of those things, like the only way that you can really, it sounds pretty cheap. You've got to support it. The thing is as long as it's making money, and as long as it's getting that attention, you got to support it. I heard they went to Sky to see if they could get a TV deal, but just because of the numbers weren't doing that great from SmackDown and Raw on Sky in the UK, Sky are like, we don't really have an interest in your NXT division, because if your main product's not shifting, then why would this? But I think it just takes a mind to look at it from a different slant and think well, maybe the reason why people in the UK aren't watching wrestling anymore is because there's such a disconnect. Like when the Attitude Era was going, there was more of a connect because it was the MTV generation where people were wanting to be more Americanized. But if they had something that they could have that was for the wrestling fan, but also cool enough for people who are kind of on the edge, then you could be into something pretty cool. But the only time will tell with it, and I think it's just a case of try and watch it as often as you can and try and get to as many shows as you can, and that's the key behind it.
The great thing with it is that like with NXT and especially the UK show, it's British wrestling for British wrestling fans, and it's not anybody trying to be an American wrestler. It's I don't see that as much as you don't look at someone and think they would all fit in on a Raw or a SmackDown show because they're wrestling in a completely different style. So I think that's the key sort of thing for the UK shows, is to keep that identity as it is a British style of wrestling.
Yeah. I wanted to throw in my favourite moment of the night was probably when they had Johnny Saint at the title match and just shake hands with both of them. It just had that sport feel, a bit like like Eddie Hearn or something at a boxing match, and it's like they're gonna have him in the ring, and it's like you're gonna have the guy who's commissioning, promoting, whatever you want it to be, just having him there as this authority figure, shake hands with both the gentlemen before they have a match, and then it's so British, and it sets it apart on such a good level, and little things like that are going to make the brand a success.
Definitely.
And it's just going to go from strength to strength if they keep doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. NXT sort of, well, I'm going to say NXT America, but maybe the main
NXT
sort of NXT
US.
We saw the return of Aleister Black this week. Interrupted a match between Nikki Cross and Bianca Belair, which I thought was a bit of a shame. I like Bianca Belair. I think she's really good. She's come on leaps and bounds in the last year. But yeah, he came back. Lights went dark. Came back on. He sat in the middle of the ring. Beckons Nikki Crossover, wants to know if she knows who it is, who's attacked him from recent weeks, which we mentioned, and then off it goes. Yep. There was a little bit afterwards that people have shared from being there and filming, and the person who it was came out, which we'll not go into. So ruin it for people.
To be fair, I've not seen that. The only thing I've seen of this is someone online had done an edit of the part where he sat in the ring and Nikki Cross is kind of crawling up to him, and they edited it to "I Can't Fight This Feeling" by REO Speedwagon. It's perfect. It's absolutely brilliant.
Love that.
But that's the only thing I've actually seen of it. So yeah, like I'm still in the dark. I mean, I've got an idea about who it was. We've had a couple of conversations and stuff. Unfortunately, not in the pilot episode where I wanted it to be the Velveteen Dream. I don't think it's that, but you know. It's good. It sounds good.
It's such a great show at the minute, NXT, and we've even heard it referenced on other podcasts where they see NXT as probably one of the best promotions in the world. You know, not so much even just the best show of the sort of WWE brand, but there's so much license for them to do what they want and come up with their own ideas and really be who they want to be. That it's so refreshing to see it. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you get the that kind of local band that managed to get a supporting slot, and like no massive labels are really tweaking them or anything yet, and they're like really, really cool and they're about to take off, and the minute they get signed, it just all goes to shit and no one's interested anymore because they're not cool. That's pretty much where NXT's at, and I think when you take it as a whole package, maybe the wrestling isn't quite on par with New Japan, or maybe the production isn't quite there with like, you know, top level WWE, but like as a whole package, like everything just works. Like I've never watched an NXT episode where I've gone, well, that was boring or that was crap, whereas almost every other promotion I've watched something of theirs that was bad. But NXT, everything seems to just be, you know, slam dunk after slam dunk.
Their takeover pay-per-views that steal the weekend normally, even ahead of the main roster shows. I mean, the one with I think the one ahead of the SummerSlam pay-per-view outshone SummerSlam 100%.
Absolutely.
And that's just testament to them. But they'll be hungry, won't they? They want to get to the main roster. They want to get there. So
yeah,
I mean, I'd be happy. I'd be happy with like a salary above my own, wrestling on a much better show, getting to go home every night. Like I'd just be like, I'm just gonna stay here. Like I'm okay. I'm okay. But that's not the mentality that makes you great. That's the reason why they're so great.
Yeah, you can't think like that.
You can't think like that. It's a shame, isn't it?
It's
a shame.
A little bit of a shame. Bit of a disconnect, I guess. It's not really got anything to do with that, but one thing we did want to talk about, which is kind of interesting more than anything, is the recent TNA Impact pay-per-view.
I don't know what it's called anymore.
It's Impact.
Is it Impact now?
Impact
Bound for Glory was the pay-per-view, yeah.
But essentially, I guess, I mean, I've only watched one match from the show, and I guess as more people will have that aren't Impact fans, was the Austin Aries against Johnny Mundo match.
Johnny Impact is called at the minute.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Fucking hellfire.
Charming and sexy.
Ending with Johnny Impact winning the title, and Austin Aries standing up after Starship Pin, getting up and just walking out of the ring, flipping off the rest of the crowd and the wrestler.
And shouting at Don Callis.
Heading backstage. Essentially just no-selling the finish to the match. Was it a work or was it a shoot, is the question.
I know for one that Don Callis is massive on a work shoot angle, like massive. He loves that. He did well with Jericho, and like he's big on that. And from what I've heard on the grapevine, it looks like it may be a work shoot angle. But the problem is with Austin Aries, he's such a good character to choose for it, because he's, by all accounts, and I mean, I'm not saying this is just an objective thing. By all accounts, he's a problematic gentleman at times.
Yeah,
he often goes into he often goes into business for himself, doesn't he? So it's one of those things, like you say, that anybody else you would kind of think, well, it's just part of the show. Whereas this is like, well, he probably would do that because he thinks it is all about him.
Yeah, I mean, in times like this, Robert and Thomas, I have to quote one of the great literary voices of the wrestler generation, that is Mr. Terry Bollea, who once said that us jabroni marks without a life don't know it'll work, and then you work a work and work yourself into a shoot.
Only love HH.
Only love HH. Now, have we worked ourselves into a shoot? Do we know it's a work when you work yourself into a work? These are the questions that need answering. I mean, didn't Triple H once say that if it's on TV and it's in wrestling, then it's always a work?
It's planned.
It's always a work.
Mate. I suppose the thing is,
to me, it's a work. It's a total
well,
work.
we're all talking about it.
Of course.
And that's ultimately what was wanted
from it.
From anybody.
From what you can say about... Go on.
And I think the thing where we are all talking about it is we're talking about that last segment more than the rest of the pay-per-view.
And I'm sure some of the old guys will be rolling in the graves because they're using the fact that wrestling might not be real as a kind of way to sell their products. And I get it's in the 21st century. I get you got to do things like that. But yeah, to me, watching it back, it all looked very, very planned.
Yeah.
And again, like as you were saying, Rob, some of the guys backstage were saying they had no idea, and he walked back shouting and effing and blinding, effing and jeffing.
All you have to do is look at Wrestling with Shadows, though, and see that the only people in on a good work shoot are, say, 5 or 6 individuals right at the top who are involved with the match. Everybody else keep in the dark, because then you've got wrestlers who are like, I don't know whether this is real or not.
Yeah, and it works out well for them.
Yeah, you've got to work the rest of your staff if you want the big boys to go over. And I mean, say what you want about Aries. We're talking about TNA on our podcast, which is the first time I think we've ever done that.
Probably the last time already as well.
Yeah, but
I mean, again, as an awful human being as Austin Aries is, I don't think he'd ever go into business for himself and start shoot fighting. I don't think he'd ever sell a finisher. I don't think he'd ever kick out when he's meant to stay down. I don't think he'd do that. He might get off the show and call people out and call them awful names and throw his dummy out the pram, but I don't think he'd ever ruin a live pay-per-view event for a company because he wasn't going over.
I think he cares too much about the business from what I can see. I mean, he does genuinely eat, sleep and breathe wrestling. And as much as like a quote-unquote asshole that he's reported to be, I mean, he is like one of the stars. He's a bit like, I'd say a younger version like Christopher Daniels or something like that. Just the guy who's probably going to be in it forever, like working at different levels, different heights. But I mean, he's definitely an important figure, and I think, I like you say, I don't think he disrespects the sport. He loves that much like that. It's all, to me, like I'd be willing to bet substantially that it's a work.
It's probably all just really good timing because his contract did end as well at the end of that pay-per-view. Do
you know where I hope he goes?
Go on.
I hope he goes to Dragon Gate. I hope Neville just beats the shit out of him again.
Jobs out to Neville for another 3 weeks.
Fight forever.
Yeah.
I love them too. Right good.
What else we got? I feel like this week's been kind of quiet in terms of.
It has a little bit. There's
the main thing, I guess, is Crown Jewel. Whether it will go ahead or not after that journalist got murdered, potentially.
Yeah.
Speculation.
Yeah. It's an on again, off again thing, isn't it? 1 minute it's.
I heard that, I can't remember who said it. Somebody that has the inside sources said that unless Donald Trump rings Vince McMahon himself and says don't go to Saudi Arabia, they will be going to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Hey, I think you've just quoted Uncle Dave there. Uncle Dave.
I might have done. I
Big melts.
read it.
Big ups, brother.
I think it's probably a case of they've just been a bit uncomfortably quiet about the whole situation, apart from saying well, we're monitoring it and seeing what happens. And it's like, well, we've all seen what's happened.
They've not really said anything, have they? But then again, like you said, Rob, they've not really announced anything for the show other than the 4 matches currently.
There's only 4 matches, which we spoke about. They don't mention Saudi Arabia in any of the promotional material anymore.
It's weird. I mean, it is strange. I know that the venue that they're running Raw and SmackDown in Manchester is open for bookings. People reckon that if it does all fall through, they might just bring the show to England instead.
Well,
Crown Jewel still works as a title for the show. I mean, even if it moves to England, it would still work.
It works.
It would still work.
It's weird. It's a weird situation to be in for WWE. I get why you'd want to stay there because money talks and there's no friends in business.
Kevin Nash has said they're not diplomats on your contract. Exactly. And I mean, I kind of get that, but like
50 million.
The thing is, it's like you've got to think. It sounds ridiculous, but could you imagine WWE pulling out and then it escalating into like an actual military issue, like like the US and Saudi Arabia having a massive like borderline World War III over the fact they didn't put a wrestling show on.
I mean,
it's like only the WWE could land
yeah,
themselves in the middle of that
only
shit.
Vince could end up with that situation.
It's like, go do your wrestling and then come home and then just leave it.
I know a lot of talent haven't said they're not going to go, but they have a lot of them have said they don't want to go. Like they've voiced their dislikes in having to go there.
You could bury your entire career in that company by doing that.
I'm sure
that's what I thought.
I'm sure guys like Sami Zayn will decline to go. He'll straight.
Yeah, he didn't go to the Greatest Royal Rumble, did he?
I don't think he'll go to this one. So obviously, he has a lot of charity work with those affected areas and things like that.
Yeah,
it's the Sammy for Syria charity as well.
It's Syria. But I think he has the same general like kind of mindset about it all. But there are quite a few that have said, "I don't want to go." They will obviously still go if they have to, but they've said they do not want to be there.
And it's a shame, really, and it's a shame that they. Obviously, the Greatest Royal Rumble one was for the money, and we spoke about that before, and it's a shame that it had to happen where, there's no women's matches on the card, which is ultimately at the minute, like we were seeing with the pay-per-view coming up, that the women's division is not propping up the men's division, but it's running on side of it, and it can't run without it. The men's division can't run without any of the women's division.
No, I think
at that point, like in terms of from a company standpoint, I get it. Like you say, money talks, and I get it that you're not going to get any money like Saudi Arabian money. Like it's on a completely different level for them. But you feel like at the point where you're a $1 billion industry, wouldn't you be saying if our women can't wrestle there, we're not wrestling there?
Yeah, it'll get to that stage at some point. I think we're not there yet.
It should have been that stage from the start.
Of course it should. It definitely should have, but we're not.
It's a carny business, and it's got to stay a carny business.
Look, the way I would look at it is the situation over there with this whole government thing is way bigger than wrestling.
Way bigger.
You shouldn't.
Way bigger.
Like, if this is the case, that I don't think people should be looking at the rest of this to show it. Like, they shouldn't be worrying about whether that's going to go ahead or not. Completely ignore the fact WWE going there. Just focus on the fact that potentially a man has been killed for voicing his opinions in a diplomatic building.
That
should be the worry. Like, it shouldn't have to worry about WWE going there at all. If what's happened has happened, how they said it's happened, then WWE won't go there. There'll be nowhere they will go if that has what's occurred. But if it doesn't come out, just watch the show, be over and done with, get on a plane, come home.
You've got to think the amount of like fucking civil crimes that go on to put the Football World Cup on every 4 years is fucking ridiculous. FIFA are committing atrocities all the time.
Isn't Qatar the Qatar stadiums being built by slaves and stuff like that?
Pretty much. It's not a great situation really with the World Cup.
The Olympics, it's the same thing with the Olympics. With sport, anytime it gets into a territory, we're going to perform in a foreign country. I mean, especially when it's a country that has historical tensions, you're always going to get this. But I mean, it seems like it's stealing headlines where really, like, I mean, not good headlines. We're talking like, tabloid headlines, but it's still something where you think like best to just go, get the wrestling out of the way, and then maybe rethink about your business decisions in the future, because you've got to realise you're getting into bed with some stuff that might not be where you want it to be, really.
Yeah,
but definitely.
Who knows?
We'll see. There has been some New Japan stuff as well in the last few weeks. A match that we previewed last week for the Kings of Pro Wrestling pay-per-view that was on. We were talking earlier about how New Japan is so hard to keep up with because there's just so much of it.
Yeah.
The Power Struggle tag team leagues are going on at the minute. They've been going on all week.
Yeah.
But one of the results was we spoke about the Kushida and Marty Scurll match, which Kushida won.
Marty Scurll.
It was. I've seen bits of it. I've seen clips of it. It's always going to be good. I don't think people should be surprised at this stuff anymore. You put them to an it's going to be money.
Yeah, the entire like top end of the card is like just little dream matches. Like you say, Kushida and Scurll. It's one of those things where they could, even on a really off day, like they're gonna have a good match, and this was a fantastic match.
Yeah, even the main event, the Kenny Omega, Cody and Ibushi match was a great triple threat match. Even
everyone looks strong.
You wouldn't get this in WWE, but obviously the pairing that Ibushi and Omega have. Omega won the match by using his finisher on Ibushi and pinning Ibushi with Cody out of the ring.
Yes.
And nothing was made of it as, well, they're going to break up. It was just, look, it's a sport. This is what we've got to do.
It is what it is.
And this is how one of us needs to win.
I'd not want you out if I had to win a match.
Yeah, I'd be alright with that as well.
But I'd definitely spark you if I had to.
It's very similar to, like, you get these things where, like, you have these blood feuds, but if you think about it, from a football perspective as well, you'll play for your club team, but then you'll go and play for a country, and you're playing against people that you work with, essentially. It's like, it's a sport, and that's your job, and New Japan approach it very well from that side. I mean, obviously you are sometimes going to get feuds, and you are sometimes going to get that, but I think wrestling these days relies too heavily on everyone's super sensitive and everything's really personal. It's like, sometimes you just go, you beat me that time, I'll get you the next one.
There are no friends in business. There are no friends in business, and you don't make friends with salad either. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I love that, and I think it's cool that they didn't go for the, like, kind of, Kenny hits, like, Cody hits a finisher, and then Kenny rolls him out the ring, and then Kenny gets the pin. It's kind of ambiguous as to who won. It was just nice, clean, quick, sorted.
Absolutely.
Like, I like that.
Definitely. We've also we've got coming up, I think it's this week, it's the Power Struggle and New Japan pay-per-view coming up. Probably one of the standout matches from that is the Jericho versus Evil Intercontinental
He's back
match.
again.
Mm-hmm.
He's back again.
This is probably one of my favourite incarnations of Jericho throughout any of his wrestling career. His work in New Japan is...
That's like being abandoned by his family. And,
he's great.
Yeah,
the work he's putting in New Japan is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good.
When's his cruise?
Soon.
The next few weeks.
Few days.
Next few weeks. It might even be this week coming.
It's a few days away. It's a few days away.
Mate, someone's gonna die on that cruise,
I mean, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? Let's be honest. I mean, I don't
it's
want
either going to be, it's either going to be some pissed up mark's going to fall over the boat.
Yes.
You're going to get a wrestling legend die, because they drop like a dime a dozen. There's about 50 wrestling legends on one big boat in the middle of the ocean.
When it's all
in the middle of the ocean.
Especially when it's in international waters as well.
It sounds like a film, doesn't it? Like
it's a recipe for fucking disaster.
50 wrestling legends on one boat.
Legends boat.
Yeah, somebody. I would put. I mean, if Bucky's took odds on it, I would definitely put money on somebody either voluntarily jumping overboard to do some kind of spot, or some idiot falling over the side of the boat.
Mate, 100%. There's going to be a match where someone gets dragged out onto the deck and they get leathered over the side of the boat, and whoever's running that cruise, I guarantee aren't going to be professional.
God no.
And someone's going to get killed. There's going to be some indie wrestler, probably named Chase Summer, who's going to get minced up by some fucking rotors on the boat.
Like, do you know how you do like a lariat over the top, like lariat over the rope to like eliminate somebody out of Royal Rumble? It's going to do that,
Yeah.
but with the barricade at the top.
I want to see a Shawn Michaels style super kick over the barrier into the water.
Mate, they should have a Royal Rumble where you just got to throw them off the boat.
That would be amazing.
Over the top deck Royal Rumble.
All you need to do is moor the boat in a harbour, get everybody off.
Just don't go off near the back.
So it's static, and just fire them off the back. It'd be great, good.
Fantastic. I was listening to his podcast the other week, and he had the Young Bucks and Cody on, and they were talking about how they put all in together, and they're so involved with it. I think it's Matt Jackson's wife was also so involved that she planned it all, and she used the contact for the building and the promoters and all of this kind of thing. And Jericho was saying, like, I just came up with the idea of wanting a cruise. And then someone said, "Why are you going to do it?" He said, "I don't know. I'll just find someone and they can sort it out."
Yeah.
So he says, "I've got this guy who works for me who's putting this cruise on, who's just tearing his hair out because I'm saying we're going to have a ring in it and we're going to have a band playing and we're going to do t-shirts."
Where are you right now, Chris? I'm drunk on vodka with Alice Cooper in fucking Winnipeg. You know what I mean? Like,
it'll be hilarious. Do you know when it got announced, I almost considered getting a cabin. Like, just one of the cheapest, awful, like, mid-deck, like, no windows, just an awful, like, single-bed cabin, just to watch the hilarity. And, like, I assume it's going to be dreadful, like,
if
in a
I was
good
going to
way.
make it into a movie, I'd have it like Murder on the Orient Express. One of the marks gets killed, and then this detective's on board, and he just has to solve the case.
It wouldn't
he
even
just gets
surprise
no
me
answers
if
to anything because
happens.
everybody's lying.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy.
It'd be ridiculous.
Oh,
I don't know if they're filming any of it. I don't know. If
I would assume there'll be a lot of it will be either recorded. And I don't think they'll be broadcast.
I don't know if they'll be able to broadcast it, but if they film it,
I want a box
it'll
set
be great.
DVD.
They'll still film it. They'll release it some way. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much it for this week. There's not really much else happening. I think next week will be a big week. I think after Evolution and kind of Crown Jewel, that's when the news will ramp up.
Yeah, I mean, we're in that sort of time of the middle bit of the month when there's no pay-per-views that have just happened. We're gearing up to some pay-per-views, but they're still a week or two away.
Yeah, it always happens. But this, I guess, is going to be a bit of a short episode for this week. So in the meantime, you can catch us at The Lights Pod on Twitter or Staring at the Lights on Instagram. There should be another Friday Night Lights episode out this week as well. Going to be coming up soon. Other than that, I guess we will see you all in the near future.